For 100 years, the Crag Rats have been rescuing lost and injured people in the mountains and the gorges of Hood River County and beyond. Our spectacular backyard lures outdoor lovers from around the world, people who sometimes get themselves into trouble. That's when the Crag Rats step in. As the nation's oldest mountain rescue organization, emergency calls coming in at all hours are no surprise. People don't get hurt or lost according to a schedule. Despite being an all-volunteer organization, when a call comes in, the Crag Rats drop what we're doing to respond. It can be a strain on our personal lives, but we all love bringing people home safely.
I wrote a book celebrating the 100-year history of the Crag Rats, in part to express our deep love of the mountain and our deep culture as a team. In one of the earliest rescues, we brought a young boy out of the mountain in 1926, and one of the reporters from Portland said, "Who are you guys?" And one of the mountaineers on the rescue recalled a wife saying, "You guys are just a bunch of rats climbing crags every weekend instead of doing household duties." So he blurted out, "We're Hood River Crag Rats." And that name stuck for 100 years. And so well did we know this mountain through recreation and rescues that we led the American Legion climbs to the summit of Mount Hood.
I've been a Crag Rat for 53 years, since I was 18 years old. There was never really a question of whether I was going to become a member or not. My father was a member, my grandfather was one of the founding members, and I just grew up backcountry skiing and climbing all over the Northwest, but especially Mount Hood, since it's in our backyard.
As a mountain guide and a Crag Rat, I spend a lot of time on glaciers, and I've seen more than a few tragic accidents. Even highly experienced climbers sometimes get into trouble, but usually it's people who have more ambition than skill who hurt themselves. Mount Hood is probably one of the most climbed glaciated peaks in the world. It's super easy to just start walking uphill, but when the snow gets steep and turns into ice, if you're not prepared, it could be a fast ride down.
Mount Hood gets all the attention, but the majority of our rescues happen in the Columbia River Gorge. It's very rugged terrain. There's lots of long, steep trails and lots of waterfalls and cliffs. Lots of the rescues happen because people overextend themselves and they don't know their limits. They either get lost, lose the trail, get over exhausted, or the worst case scenario is they fall off a cliff.
I was a primary call-out coordinator for the Rats decades ago, for about 10 to 15 years. Back then we only had landlines, and often I was calling people in the middle of the night.
The first stage of rescue is when the sheriff's office calls the coordinators. We decide who's going to be the coordinator, and we send a message out to all the active rats. We give them the bare bones info, the mission location, the subject status, and then we keep track of who's coming. It's a pretty hectic first half hour until everyone is in the field.
When I first joined the Rats, our training program was decent, but not as regular and organized as we would have liked. So I've used my background as a pararescueman to help Gary establish twice-a-month trainings in everything from operating wheeled litter to using extensive rope work to pick people off vertical cliffs, whether it's in the gorge or on the mountain. While we're all very individualistic, the Rats are remarkably good at working as a team. That's due in part to the respect we have for each other, respect that's built from the days we spend on the mountain together, but also from practice.
The Crag Rats not only can provide skillful rescue in the mountains, we can also provide high quality medical care at the scene of the injury or the rescue. Our staff is highly trained and experienced. 75% of our responding crew are seasoned physicians, nurses, paramedics, EMTs, and wilderness first responders.
Cloud Cap was built in 1889 as a hotel. People got there originally either by hiking or by horseback. When Timberline Lodge was built in the 1930s, people stopped going to Cloud Cap. The building fell into bad repair. In 1950, it was declared to be surplus by the Forest Service to be either sold or burned. Crag Rats came by and took over at that point in time and operated the building under special use permit to maintain it as a historic structure and to use it for search and rescue work.
For the last half century, I've done most of the repair and restoration work on the end. There's already a log in the building that we haven't replaced over the years. The wind up here can reach 100 miles per hour and it drives snow into every nook and cranny. When the snow melts, the damp rots the wood, so the place needs constant work. My son Todd, also a rat, and I have spent so many days working on the inn that we long ago lost count of them.
Hi, I'm Dennis Deno Klein. I'm the manager of the Crag Rat Snowcat. We use the Snowcat for winter snowcat rescues and operations when the road is shut down. We transport equipment, people, supplies, and we also haul the victims down from the mountain after the rescue.
The Crag Rats may have been the first official mountain rescue group in the country, but as more and more people started to recreate, more and more search and rescue organizations were formed. By the 1950s, the organizations recognized the need for national standards, and they formed the MRA, which is the Mountain Rescue Association. Today, there's over 100 members. So we celebrate both the Crag Rats, who are the first, but all those people who give of themselves and their time to help others in search and rescue organizations across the U.S.
All rats are required to have climbed our local volcanoes, but lifetime membership is given only to those who've climbed 8 of the Pacific Northwest volcanoes, including Mount Rainier, our highest at over 14,000 feet. We don't just know our backyard. Rats have climbed about 8,000 meters in the Himalaya, climbed the highest summits on all the continents, and put up new routes on big peaks in the Alps. But the real passion of most rats is backcountry skiing, which we also do all over the world, in addition to hundreds of descents from the summit of Mount Hood.
The Rat Leadership Cycle has served the needs of the organization really well. It is a 6-year conveyor belt system with the best naming convention ever. You start off as a pipsqueak, which is the equivalent of a secretary, then little squeak, which is the vice president, and big squeak, which is the president. After that, you run into 3 more additional trusteeship years. Each one of these years, you serve a specific role and responsibility for the organization. This leadership cycle has served the rats well for the last century.
I was the first woman to go through the leadership cycle. In fact, I was one of the first women to become a Crag Rat. That was in the early 1990s, not that long ago. It was always a boys' club until then. The rats may not be leaders in moving society forward, but at least we're trying to keep up. We even have a QR code. It leads you to our website, where you can find out more about our nation's oldest mountain search and rescue organization, the Hood River Crag Rats.